Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It looks like it's time to get started. So, just as a little bit of background, we met. We had a meetup about almost 2 months ago, and covered some pre-launch SEO, technical SEO tasks, and we've got kind of a second round, the post-launch SEO tasks, kind of queued up. But an opportunity came along when Google announced a program called Google Surfaces, and they have many confusing names. But Google Surface is about allowing merchants to use Google Shopping to submit products through the Google Shopping feed and have them show up for free. And honestly, Google Shopping is my favorite SEO tool. Certainly not the only one, but we've had a lot of success with clients using Google Shopping. We've got some clients that have a good chunk of their sales coming in from it, and it's a relatively simple, not super simple, but relatively simple for the results that you get, program to implement. So we're excited to talk about that. When we until about a week ago, 10 days ago, we had 5 people signed up, and then now we've got 40 people. I don't know how many will show up tonight, but obviously a lot of interest because we all want to show up on Google well. So I will mention also that Dan's going to try to record this, so hopefully we can have a video that you can review later if you want to just kind of scan back through it. Today we're going to have a kind of a high-level overview that will hopefully help you get an understanding of Google Shopping and how to use it, and then further explore it with yourselves or with our help. So, Dan, if you're ready, let's go ahead and move on. So just a quick introduction. I am Brad Court, president of Web to Market. I started Web to Market 22 years ago, so it's been a while. I've been involved in with a lot of clients. It's really enjoyable to help our clients, which are usually small and medium-sized companies, help them sell more and be more successful. And I'll introduce Dan Voss, or he can introduce himself. Dan, go ahead.
Hey everyone, Dan Voss here. I am a Magento certified solutions specialist here at Web to Market. I've been with Web to Market for just over 7 years now. I've worked with a lot of the people on this webinar, helping build sites and increasing sales and traffic to the sites. So this is always something that I'm excited to talk about and to explore with clients, because it helps us all continuing to grow in the e-commerce marketplace. All right. Kind of a recap. I'm sure you guys have seen this before. We look at things like Google Shopping campaigns in a wider breadth in what we call digital marketing. A lot of people think digital marketing and they just think SEO, especially on-page SEO. But there's a lot more that's involved with it. And it's just, Google Shopping is just one of several tools that helps increase and bring more sales into your site. We work with a large variety of them, and we customize our campaigns based on what makes the most sense. But now with Google Shopping being free, it's something that we thought would make sense to share with the meetup and everyone out there, so that they can take advantage either with our help or on their own to continue to build awareness for their site and sell more. Oh, Brad, we can't hear you.
Oh, I hit that darn mute button again. It's just in the worst place. So Google Shopping, what is it? Even if you don't know exactly what it is, you've probably seen it many times. And we've got a couple of screenshots here, but Dan, why don't you flip your screen over to our browser, and we'll do a search for Garmin fish finders. And we'll take a look at a couple of what Google calls surfaces and where the results show up. So the search that Dan did there first is showing the results on what we'd oftentimes call the Google organic search. And you can see that right away on the top, we see Garmin Fish Finder products come up. And obviously, they're linked off to a number of different merchants. And below that, then we see pay-per-click ads, and we see below that, we see videos and organic results. But this is an example of where products fed in through Google Shopping show up in the organic search results. On the top there, you'll see a shopping button as well, and there's a specific Google Shopping search that can be done. And so when we do that for Garmin Fish Finder, it of course returns products. And it also, if you'll notice on the left, returns a navigation that lets the customer kind of narrow their search to a more specific set of products. And then obviously they click one of these product links and are off to that merchant, or potentially to view a list of merchants. So that's how you'll see, or your customers will see, Google Shopping. And obviously, it's just another opportunity for your site to show up in Google search results. So that's a good thing. I'll also mention that there's a Bing products search, which is interesting too. It's got a quarter of the traffic that Google does, so it's not the first thing that we think of. But if you do a paid campaign at some point, it costs less than Google Shopping, and so I'd recommend starting with Google Shopping, and then if it's working for you, then you can explore Bing products as well. So yeah, go ahead, Dan. Go ahead and move on to that next page. So why do we want to use it? Obviously, millions of users are searching Google for products daily. That's a lot of eyeballs and a lot of traffic that can show up on your site. So we obviously want that. If you submit products using the feed to Google Shopping, it's going to show up on Google Search, Google Shopping, and Google Images. I mentioned Google Surfaces is a new program that shows products at no charge. Maybe, obviously, maybe not, but it's they have a way to use Google Ads to pay for higher placement. But if you're not using Google Shopping now, this is a great way to kind of get your feet wet at a very low cost. And then you can make the choice later if you want to experiment with paid ads as well. And I mentioned earlier again too that we've had some clients with great success with Google Shopping. So we think it's a great digital marketing tool to consider trying.
I hate to jump in and interrupt you, Brad. Some people are saying that they can't hear us on the audio. Are people able to hear us? You could just type into the chat and let me know.
Can you hear me, Dan?
I can hear you. Looks like Bill can hear you. Abby can hear you. Okay. So it just seems there's a couple people. Perfect. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. And I will remind, feel free to use the chat as we're going through this if you have any questions, and then we will revisit them at the end. So no need to hold on to the questions. You can start putting them into the chat, and we'll address those at the end. Sorry, Brad, go back to it.
All right, will do. All right, I think we can move on. There we go. All right, so we've started already. What we're going to cover, just to kind of narrow down our focus a little bit today, is kind of the basics of Google Shopping, creating a feed within your site, submitting the feed via the Google Merchant Center, and then we're going to talk about data quality. What is data quality in Google Shopping, and why is it important? A couple of topics we're not going to cover that are related. One is Express Shopping, which lets customers order actually while they're on Google Shopping. Right now, I believe the program is pretty limited to some large merchants. And also, although that's not true, I take that back. There are other merchants can get in there, but a more advanced topic, so we're not going to cover that today. And Google paid ads to kind of improve your position and show up in more product searches is definitely something worth exploring, but it's a more advanced topic as well, and so we're going to skip that for now. All right, so first steps. We're going to, number one, use the functionality built into your website, or utilize a feed production app or extension. So first is your site has to have that functionality either built in, which I'll mention if we'll talk a little bit about a few platforms today, just to because I know a lot of us work with either Able Commerce, Magento, or Shopify. So Able Commerce has some functionality built in. Magento, you need an extension, although they're relatively inexpensive, 60 to 100 bucks. Or Shopify, and there's a free app. We'll talk about that a little bit. That comes with Shopify, but then there's also some preferred paid apps as well. So that needs to be installed. One of those needs to be installed or available. Second, generate the feed file in your site. That file is going to be a file that Google Shopping will grab. And to do that, we have to set that feed up in Google's Merchant Center. We'll take a look at that. Fourth is part of the configuration is setting up shipping and tax rules in the Merchant Center. There's a couple of other items to mention as well. Once that's set up, Google will start to pull product data. Then you're going to need to monitor and optimize your campaigns. And step 5 is an ongoing thing. We'll drill into that a little bit more as well. So, creating the feed within your site. And as I mentioned, we'll be looking at Shopify, Magento, and Able Commerce. And we're not going to cover all of them in depth, but we're going to do a few screenshots just to do a comparison. So creating the feed in Magento. This is a screenshot of the Magento admin. And Dan, why don't we flip over to actually the live website, and hopefully we can look at some of the more detail, some of the items that need to be configured. So this is an extension that is installed in this Magento site, and we can look through some of these settings just to give you an idea of what you'll need to set. So attributes is a good one to look at. We get into this kind of, got to log in here again.
Yeah, security.
All right. Well, you're doing that. I'll talk. So Google has its naming conventions for fields, and Magento has its naming conventions for fields, and Able Commerce has its, and Shopify has its own naming conventions. So somewhere we've got to kind of tell Google, or we got to tell the feed what how to match these fields that are being sent to Google. So let's go to the, yeah, there we go.
Two more seconds and then we're there.
This is what happens when you work with a development site. It's slow. Well, as you can see here are some of the, I'll just jump ahead a little bit. We see on our screen here, oh, now I jumped ahead, and now we don't need to.
There we go.
So, all right, here we go. So, yeah, as I mentioned, we kind of have to tell Google where to look for some of these fields. If we go to let's just go to the top there a little bit, Dan, and I'll talk through a couple of fields. So what Google calls an ID is usually the part number or the SKU. So we're going to tell them that the SKU is what Google calls an ID. A name is the product name field. Description is the description field. Dan, why don't you just drop down, show a drop down in one of these fields just to give a little flavor of how there are options. There are many options for where we can pull data, including attributes or custom fields. So depending on how your data is set up, you may choose different fields to populate the feed to Google. Yeah, Dan, why don't you just go back to scroll down a little bit. And there's a lot of fields that could be populated, and it really kind of depends. Some of these make no sense for your business and don't matter. If you're selling apparel, obviously color and size matter. If you're selling electrical boxes, that probably doesn't matter. All right, so once you've got your app or extension installed, or you're going to want to set your defaults. Let's go back to the slide presentation, and we can take a quick look at what Shopify's app looks like. Here's after the app is installed. You can. It's very easy to set up the app in Shopify. However, I usually recommend looking for a third-party app, as what's built into the standard functionality in Shopify is very simple. Makes it easy to set up, but when we start talking about data quality later, having as much data going to Google that describes the product as possible is better. And as you're picking an app, you want to make sure you have the ability to send that descriptive data about your products to Google. So it's important to choose the right app or extension up front. And then Dan, let's take a look at, here's Able Commerce. So that functionality is standard, but it is pretty basic. There's not a lot of ability to manage the defaults that are sent over to Google Shopping. There are a couple of ways that can be addressed. One is we can customize the feed so that it pulls data from fields that we specify. Another option is to set some defaults in Google Shopping as well. But we prefer to pull data from the shopping cart. So again, it depends on what products you're selling and what data you have about your products. All right, so we've done the initial work of configuring our app or extension, and we've got some defaults set, and we've now got a feed file generated. Yeah, we can go back to Magento here, and we can look at a configuration option just to kind of illustrate that a little bit. Yeah, scroll down to feeds there, Dan, if you would. Oh, you are there. Sorry. Scroll up just a tad. And here are some setting options. Obviously, enable it. Give it a file name. We want to set frequency, and we want to grab all our stores usually. So then we've kind of scheduled it. Down below, we can see the file name. And Dan, why don't you highlight that file name there? So that is the file that will be sent over to, or that Google Shopping technically will fetch, and that's going to have all your product data in it. So we have at this point we've configured the functionality. We've got a file created. We know that location, and now we can go to the Merchant Center, and we're going to go ahead and set up our feed there. So the Google Merchant Center is a service that's specifically for merchants to get their product into Google. And this is where we're going to tell Google where to look for that product. We're going to set up some information about our feed and some other data about our store, like shipping and tax rules. And it's the place that you're going to monitor the effectiveness of your campaigns. So here's a quick screenshot, and we will take a look at this a little more closely over in Google itself. This is a client of ours that's it's a new site. We're just getting it set up. We just started submitting the feed. They sell custom T-shirts, and so we've got the feed generated, and Google has found the feed. It's pulled in data. You can see that it's recognized 86,413 products, which is great. It looks like it's listing them all, but I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here, but there's some issues that we have to address. And actually, we'll probably come back to this under data quality, I think, right, Dan? Yeah, we should be working on the feed. Sorry, going off on that a little early. So let's take a look. We want to get the feed file into Google Shopping. So there's actually a feed set up, but we're going to show you how to set up another one. Yep, go ahead and click on that, Dan. And choose a language. This is where we can choose to feed either or the surfaces across Google, which is the free service, or we can also do the shopping ads, which is paid. Right now, let's just go ahead and choose surfaces across Google. And you'll see here that there are actually a variety of ways to feed Google. And what we generally prefer to do is the scheduled fetch. The reason for that, well, Google Sheets is entirely manual, which I don't recommend unless you want to be uploading files on a regular basis, or manually managing your products, which if you have a handful of products, maybe you can do. But there's a scheduled fetch, which we tell it where the file is located, and it goes out and grabs it on a regular basis. The upload where we're manually uploading, or website crawl, which isn't great because it leaves it up to Google to pull data, and it won't recognize all the many types of data. So let's go with scheduled fetch. And we're going to go ahead and just kind of, we're not going to complete this, but we're going to give we're going to put the file name in here, and just the file name. And we're going to give it a schedule. Well, go ahead and paste the URL in there, Dan. That might make more sense at this point. All right. So we've told it where it is. There's, if we go back up a little bit, we're going to tell it the frequency of grabbing that data, and generally I would put daily in there, and then the time. You kind of want to put the time in here. That's basically when you're ending, typically done adding new product data. So if you're adding product data all day, you might want to put that at 5 p.m.
And you'll also want to make sure that the fetch time is after the time that it's created in Magento.
Yeah, good point. Good point. These aren't huge details about schedule unless you're entering a lot of products and your products are changing quickly. But yeah, generally you want to have it grab the file quickly after it's created, and you want that time to be after you're finished updating products for the day. No need to enter in username and password unless you password protect that, but there's really no reason for most merchants to password protect it. All right, so the next step would be to click Create Feed, and once it's done that, then Google will pretty quickly grab that file, and start pulling it in. So now we've created our feed on our shopping cart. We've told Google where and when to get that data. The third item in our presentation here is about data quality. So, and this is kind of the ongoing work of helping your products return in a good position on the results. Setting up the app or extension and then doing the configuration is probably a few hours worth of work. The data quality can be a lot more than that, and usually, that's something that you're going to do over time. But some key points about the quality of your data: the better your product data, the more people will see your products and the results. So and we'll talk a little bit about how to improve the data. We'll talk about that in a second, but it's not just improving the accuracy and that kind of thing. It's also having more data. There's a set of required attributes we'll look at that you have to have, but then there's also other attributes that you can add, and the more of these attributes that you're submitting and the more accurate they are, the more Google will like your feed, like your products, and show them in a higher position. So before I go on with the exact details about product quality, a point that's worth thinking about is as you're improving the quality of the data on your site, you're not just going to be doing that for the feed, but it's going to improve your customer experience and your organic search results as well. The more data that you have and the better it is about your products, the easier it is for customers to have their question answered, and the more the Google bot will like what it sees on your pages. And so product attributes that you want to think about improving are, let's go back a little bit there, Dan. I'm going to hit those last few points here. So when you're thinking about your products, you want to have good descriptive product titles. When somebody does a search and sees the results, think about what they're looking at. Is it intriguing? Is it complete? How can you improve your product titles? Don't just include whatever the manufacturer gave as the name. Compelling imagery. If you have crappy looking images about your products that show your products, they're blurry, they're missing, those kinds of things, it will kill your sales, whether it's in Google Shopping or on your website. Current prices. Google will monitor prices. It monitors a lot of stuff if it thinks that your data is inaccurate or misleading, such as, product availability is even a better example of that. If the feed says the product is available, but on your website it says the product isn't available, they actually check for that kind of thing. And you can, and I've seen it where merchants have had their feeds cut off until they've improved their product quality. Data quality. All right, Danielle, let's move on to the required fields. So as I mentioned, there are a number of pieces of data that are required, and Google will not take your feed, submit or accept your products if this data is missing. So title, SKU, description, URL, an image URL, product availability, price. Okay, all those are, I think they're kind of obvious. Brand. So you've got to have a brand in there. A lot of times merchants don't have brand. That is required. GTIN. So if that doesn't ring a bell, you probably know it as UPC. There's, I'm trying to think of what the GTIN acronym means, or stands for, but I'm global something ID number. Anyway, for most of us in the US, that's UPC code. If you don't have a UPC code, which really, frankly, most of our clients don't on their products, then you must have manufacturer part number and brand. So you can have UPC code, or you can have the combination of brand and manufacturer part number. But you've got to have one of those combinations, or Google won't take it. You also have to have the condition, and you have to have taxes configured.
And I'll throw some extra ones out there for our automotive folks, where they are now requiring the year, make, and model of the part as well that it fits on. So there are some verticals that require some additional ones.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I saw, well, this has been kind of a moving target with Google, so to speak. They keep making, slowly adding more requirements for required data. They just sent out an email where they added some required fields for clothing and for cell phones. So we'll talk about monitoring the campaigns. If you ignore them for years, you will likely find your site runs into some problems, or your campaign runs into some problems, and you stop getting traffic. Oh, all right. Well, a little bit ahead here, but as we said, some other data may be required. Some other data is optional, but again, the more we can give Google, the better it likes it. Product category and product type, those can be beneficial. Oftentimes, these can be set as defaults so that you don't need to enter them for every product. So but if you've got products where you've got a variety of products fitting into different categories, you'll need to set those at the product level. Earlier I mentioned that choosing the app is important, or extension, to support these kinds of fields. The default one in Shopify is pretty weak on this front. So it's easy to kind of go down the road with an app, just assuming that it's going to cover every need. You want to make sure that it supports the fields that are required for your products. All right. Monitoring and optimizing and growing your Google Shopping campaigns. So Dan, why don't we flip back to our destination t-shirt.
Okay.
And let's look at how that feed has been doing, and just to kind of illustrate the point.
This is when everyone finds out that setting up the feed was the easy part.
Well, there's no doubt that there's work in doing a good job with your data quality, but as I mentioned, it's important for both Google Shopping and for just organic traffic. So here we can see that we submitted 86,000 variants. They sell t-shirts, so every t-shirt has a whole bunch of different sizes and colors. Look, if you just take a quick scan here, it looks like it accepted 86,000 products, but if you look towards the bottom here, there's a yellow triangle that says limited performance due to missing identifiers. Dan, why don't you highlight that just yeah, there we go. So you can see that essentially 86,431 products well, they lack data, and so probably will never show in the search results. What is missing in this feed is the menu. Well, it doesn't have any of the three, and the reason for that is just simply that they don't have a UPC number. They are the manufacturer. They don't have part numbers, and as I said, they're their own brand. So we just changed the setting in Google Merchant Center to set some defaults. So that should get cleaned up in a couple of days here, and the product should start showing. We do see a couple of other issues here. They're really kind of small. I mean, we've got 18 variants that supposedly violate shopping ads policy. Well, that's probably not true. It's probably a false positive, but you have to be conscious as you're setting this up of Google's policies. Now, if you're already running paid ads with Google Shopping, whether they're display ads or pay-per-click ads, you probably don't have anything to worry about because they're already running your ads. You're probably not violating their policies. But if you're selling, for example, we have a client that sells pocket knives, and Google has if you ask me, a very wacky policy of if there's anything that could be used as an offensive weapon, you cannot use their uh, their paid or Google Shopping ads. So even though the blade might be 3 inches, apparently that's a lethal weapon in Google's eyes. They can't run any of these campaigns. So just make sure that if you've got questions about, if your products might potentially violate their policies, pay close attention to that. They will bounce you out. I've seen that as well, where people have signed up for paid campaigns, been in violation of Google's policies, and been removed from the campaigns. And then we've got 100 products that have excessive capitalization.
Very dangerous. Very dangerous.
Yes. Well, I see why they do it, because they want their customer experience to be good. And, I'm sure that was something that merchants did early on, where they capitalized everything to kind of stand out from amongst the other products. But for out of 86,000 products, 118 of them aren't going to make it in. Probably not going to sweat that one. All right.
Well, that opens it up to...
Yeah, so let me just tack on a couple of other thoughts about monitoring your campaigns. Yeah, so we set up the feed on our shopping cart. We go ahead and go into Google Merchant Center. We set up the feed. We get that running. We are working on our data quality, getting more good data into Google Shopping and onto our sites. And then we have to monitor it, because Google policies change pretty steadily. Or you might have a technical problem where your product data isn't getting fed in for some reason into Google Shopping. You want to monitor your campaign, check in on them on occasion, make sure that they're running, products are not getting marked as problematic for some reason, and just making sure that they're converting. Now, I don't have a slide on this, but and this is probably another topic entirely as well, but hopefully you have Google Analytics configured and you have your accounts linked. You get this set up, and then Google Analytics will also help you identify how well Google Shopping is doing. So anyway, that's it. So hopefully you have a good idea, at least, of how this works. We're happy to help you. We're happy to help you set this up. We're happy to help you configure this. We're not happy to help you manage all the data in your site. That is your job. But we can help you do updates there. There's also tools that we can bring to bear too. So for example, if you want to do a bunch of updating of your products and you have a way to add a UPC code, or you want to batch update the brand, there are ways we can help you do data imports and updates on your site in batches, rather than going through products one at a time. So we can help you there too. So whatever the problem is, we're uh, absolutely happy to help you work through that so you can sell more through Google Shopping and be successful.
All
All
right.
right.
We've had,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, questions? Yeah, go ahead. You've got them, Dan.
Yes,
Any questions?
the question master. So the first one we have here is, if we don't ship items, can we still use Google Shopping to our benefit?
No. It it has to actually be a physical good.
A physical good that's being shipped.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, technically, it doesn't need to ship. You could set up a shipping method where it's just pickup and it's free.
Oh, okay. So you could do a pickup in store
Yeah.
type of thing. Okay,
Yeah.
excellent, excellent.
And actually, I'll double check on the digital goods. I believe that's true. It was true in the past. It's been a few years since I've checked that. I could be wrong. In fact, what I remember is we tried to submit our extensions and plugins through Google Shopping, and they rejected them. So that's my recollection. But we'll double check on that and let you know too.
Yeah, and I just happen to know what the person asking, and they do have it. They are physical items. They just don't ship across the U.S. They just do local pickup.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that should be fine. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Next question. What third-party app for Google Shopping for Shopify? I don't know if you have one off the top of your head that we've used before.
Yeah, not remembering. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. Because we've got a couple of clients that have used the standard one, and we kind of make them work. So I don't remember. That's what I've worked with most recently myself. And that's why it's in the presentation, because I don't really like it. But we'll get back to you. I'm sorry I don't have an answer off the top of my head, but we'll get a good answer to you.
Yeah, and is there the ability to change the basic app easily in Shopify, or no?
No, there really isn't. I mean, you really can't. In short, no, you cannot change that app at all. There's a couple of configuration settings, but you cannot modify the functionality of that app.
Okay.
And generally, you can't modify anybody else's third-party app. You can have, which we do. You can have custom apps built, but you really generally the public apps are not modifiable.
Okay. All right. Next question here, and everyone, as I'm going through these questions, if there's any more questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and we'll keep going through them. Next question, could you also briefly talk about Amazon's pay-per-click advertisement and how popular it is with web-to-market clients?
I really don't have any experience with that. I know that it's been growing. We don't have any clients, I believe, that are using it. What I know of it is that it is used by a good number of companies to advertise, because obviously there's a huge number of people doing product searches in Amazon. But I really have no personal experience with it. So
Yeah, and I can throw some weight in on that as well. I have a couple clients that they use an extension that connects to their Magento site to push into Amazon all of their products. And they do a lot of the boosting or pay-per-click, but it's all being done on their end. We're not helping with them. They have an internal team that deals with the Amazon portion of it. And Brett, have you heard? Cody also mentions that Amazon is apparently about to launch its own ad site.
Yeah, I did. I have heard of that. Yeah, I again, I don't know a ton about it, but it makes sense. It's actually a very big revenue generator for them. Um, so it makes sense that they're going to continue to build that out and try to enhance that. And Google Shopping is actually a competitor with that. I almost call them a direct competitor. And so yeah, you're going to see, I'm sure you're going to see the two of them kind of go back and forth and try to outcompete each other. I mean, I don't love Google, but I kind of dislike Amazon. So I hope Google continues to do. I mean, I'd say that because most of our clients compete against Amazon, and so Google Shopping is a good tool to to use. But we've got clients that sell on Amazon, and so it could be a great choice for them as well.
Another question here. Once the products are showing up on Google Shopping, or if somebody's browsing Google and they find your product and they click on it,
Mm-hmm.
what happens at that point? Are you directed back to the site? Are you shown something more on Google? Kind of what's that process?
There's a couple of ways it can be handled. I mean, if you're, and it depends on where it's showing. As you recall, when we started, we showed search results, and they were search results from specific merchants. So if you clicked on that, that you would, we'll take a quick look at that. Like you click here, well, I can show both of them here. On the top, we see links to specific merchants. If we click there, we're going to that merchant's website. Down, we'll see that. So if we look down below that where it says buy on Google, you'll see that it shows 135.39 from 50 stores. And so you'll actually then go into a listing of stores that sell this product, and you'll see comparisons on prices and ratings and so forth. So it depends on where you are in the search results as to whether the customer goes to your site immediately or sees some more pages.
Okay, excellent. All right. Another question. What are the main reasons for disapproved ads that you've seen?
The biggest problem is usually with data quality. Products lack a manufacturer part number and a brand or a UPC code, that kind of thing. So that's number one. And then you get into kind of the miscellaneous things like we saw, like capitalization. Um, those kinds of odds and ends. I would say that's it. I mean, get the required fields in there, do a good job on the required fields, and you're in really good shape. And then, if you've got that kind of data in good shape, then you could look at some optional fields and try to enhance your position by improving, submitting more data than is required.
All right. Is there a way for Google Merchant Center to obtain the inventory counts from your Magento?
Well, you are submitting your availability. I don't believe there's a way to send them an exact quantity on hand, if that's what we're wondering.
So it's in stock or out of stock is basically what you can send to Google.
Yes.
All right. And then the last question I have here, which is, what is the cost for you to help us set this up? And obviously, that's going to vary widely.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say, I'm trying to think if there's exceptions. I want to say generally, if we're just doing this and we're configuring and maybe an app or an extension and then helping set up the feed within that app or extension and setting up the Google Merchant account, we're probably just talking about a few hours. It could take more time if we need to dig into data quality and kind of, or if you want us to do more than that. But kind of that initial setup really isn't a very long project if you know how to do it. I would say, I mean, everybody here is probably smart enough to do it on their own, and if they want to learn it and really kind of master it, I'm sure you can all do it. It's going to take a little time to learn what a lot of this stuff is and figure it out. So maybe it depends on how busy you are, but yeah, not a huge amount of our time to get it going for you.
All right, excellent. That is all the questions that I had so far. So if anyone has some last minute questions, feel free to throw them into the chat and we'll go ahead and get those answered. Otherwise, Brad, any last thoughts, comments, or anything as we wait for any last minute questions?
I just hope you all, well, oh yeah, one other thought creeps into my mind. I maybe should have mentioned this early on it, but if this is really a good fit is if your products are unique and or price competitive. If you've got a product, if you're selling products that are pretty common and they're not price competitive, then this is not going to work out well for you. But if you've got unique products, your products are price competitive, this can be really a great tool. So I guess that's something to think about. If that makes sense for your business, then I hope you give it a shot because like I said, it's worked well for a lot of our clients, and we just love to see businesses grow, and it's kind of a challenging time for everyone. So hopefully this is a relatively quick win for you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Brad. Appreciate your time and your expertise.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody spending an hour of their afternoon or evening with us, and hopefully you've learned. We'll in a couple of months here, we'll come out with another technical SEO session, and we've got a lot of ideas for things that we can share. So hopefully you're able to join us again in the future. And if you've got other questions that pop into your mind tomorrow about this, just hit either Dan or I up, and we'll be glad to help.
Yeah, and also I will make sure that everyone gets a copy of this video as well. We did record it, and then as we're all wrapping up here, I'll throw me and Brad's contact information back on the screen in case you don't have it. And everyone have a great night.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.